I tried several psychedelics but never any form of LSD or similar. Finally, one day I was able to try 1-CP-LSD, which some people say is very similar to LSD. I put this blotter under my mouth and it was totally tasteless. After about half an hour I started feeling its effect and I noticed that I felt very accelerated, wanting to run into something but not sure what, to experience life, smell everything, taste everything like never before. I did not notice any visual or auditory distortion despite clearly feeling that the substance was already reaching its peak. I was able to think faster and with more precision without feeling sluggish, slow and imprecise as I usually am. I tried to drive the car and I could drive it totally fine, but I just wanted to reach my destination faster than usual. After parking my car, I went to a park, full of people enjoying the sun. At that point I noticed that all the people there walking in the park were part of a huge organism that I was also part of. I never felt so connected to others except when I took other psychedelics. The feeling of empathy for other people, animals and insects increased, similarly but not as much as with tryptamines. I felt that spiritual and love feeling that is common with ayahuasca, mushrooms, methyltryptamine and 5-MeO, but with this form of LSD the feeling was more intellectual than emotional or spiritual. Because this form of LSD didn't pull me away from the ego like tryptamines do, I could observe myself closely but from a different perspective, like from the outside. It was a very cool feeling, like closely judging someone really close, that is actually myself. I could see how I created my own bad habits, just like sitting on the sand creates a small hole in that place, that makes us comfortable to sit in the same hole, but that does not mean that it is convenient to keep on sitting there. Maybe there are other better places to stay. While friends were talking to me, I could understand what they meant before they finished their phrases and I could think my own stuff in parallel and simultaneously make branches of new conceptual connections from my point of view with the ideas in their speech. This skill might be possible for many people, even myself, but it was greatly increased under the effect of LSD. After trying several types of psychedelics, I saw many reports that the most powerful psychedelic is 5-MeO DMT. There are laboratory sources and the toad, but not wanting to bother the poor toads, I decided to go for the lab version of 5-MeO DMT. Also, some people say that the laboratory version is purer and easier to vaporize, providing more comfortable and reliable trips as it does not contain bufo or other substances that are present in the toad venom. I chose a place to go try it and I was already scared, supposing that 5-MeO DMT was going to be far stronger than ayahuasca and all other psychedelics I ever tried. I went to a basement and loaded 2 milligrams on the pipe and smoked it and I felt like I was becoming everything and merging with the walls around me. The sensation went away in a matter of seconds but it was more uncomfortable and stronger than I expected. Because I remember that psychedelics always work better outside with nature, I went to a park and tried to vape it again, still with 2 milligrams. This time the feeling was not uncomfortable, but I was surprised by the amazing mental silence that I could feel. It was kind of like a forced meditation that lasted 5 minutes, fading away into normality. In the meantime I noticed that the perception of space and time was not exactly distorted, but my consciousness was shifting to another dimension, making me perceive space and time a bit offset. It was somewhat weird but I was still curious to go further, while a cool and peaceful feeling surrounded me. I heard that people vaporize up to 25 milligrams of 5-MeO DMT, but for me even 2 milligrams seemed far too strong. I was also impressed by the short duration of the effects from this substance, being used to other psychedelics that last easily 5 to 12 hours. Then, another day I decided to try a bigger dose and went to a forest with a friend as a sitter. It was dusk, quickly becoming darker, but I loaded the pipe with 8 milligrams. I tried to smoke it all but my lungs filled a bit too early and I could not hold the vapor for long because of a strong and sudden urge to cough that I could not stop, so accidentally I spit most of the 5-MeO vapor without being able to hold it. A sudden and growing feeling of darkness and pressure on my chest began and this ugly and dark pressure flooded all my body, mind and consciousness. It felt like the first time I drank ayahuasca during the come up, but condensed in just 2 minutes. I totally knew that nothing bad was going to happen but it felt so uncomfortable that, even if I knew that the feeling would fade away soon, every second was so horrible that it felt like hours. I used my last strength to assure my friend that I was fine, telling him, "This is so uncomfortable." When about 2 or 3 minutes passed, this dark pressure started fading away and I started feeling the most clean and pure love ever in a massive amount that I never experienced before. I started loving the grass, the fallen leaves of the ground, and crawling to kiss and hug the bushes around me, loving nature and every creation to an extent like I never did, not even with ayahuasca. During those few minutes, together with this huge love I was feeling, I also understood that we are already living in heaven, but we cannot feel it like that and cannot appreciate because of the lack of love, because our own ego, which is the container for love, is blocking the love from entering. In that moment, while I was coming down, I told my friend that there is only one true mistake, only one true sin, which is not loving. I understood that love is the solution for all problems, because problems are just our perception of the shadows within the illusion that we call life. This 5-MeO DMT is the door to open our ego to an infinite light that is the ultimate cure for all forms of depression, anxiety and sadness, even the deepest ones. Because no matter how strong darkness is, darkness can never survive the light. After 10 minutes the effect was pretty much gone and I felt normal as always, just with a slightly improved capacity to think faster and more precisely, with less mental fog and noise. I then took 5-MeO DMT more than 120 times, several times every week. It seemed to improve my mood, making me more centered, wiser, compassionate and smarter. It is not addictive, in fact I needed to force myself to take it because that infinity, from the egoic point of view, is so huge that it cannot be anything less than infinitely scary. But anyway, I usually take between 8 and 12 milligrams because it feels deep enough to learn a lot, but not too much to waste the substance. After so many 5-MeO trips, all of them are similar but all of them with something new. The first dozen times taking 5-MeO the difference was a bit more difficult, but as I gained experience, it became easier and easier to manage. Even after taking 5-MeO dozens of times, I was wrong to expect to have the same experience because, even if there are some similarities, I always learn something new and amazing. The general feeling is that when I start sucking the vapor from the pipe I get surrounded by a growing white light and a feeling of increasing love fills all my core. After a few seconds in that white space, which I suppose is what psychonauts call the waiting room, I experience a full chemically produced near-death experience passing through total ego death while getting blasted into an infinite white brightness that is all the wisdom, all the understanding, all the compassion, all the love, all the knowledge and all the intelligence, all the infinity, all the existence, all there is. In that space I cannot have any question because every question is already answered because all the wisdom and knowledge is there, and all the answers can be understood instantly because all the intelligence to understand everything is also there. That place is nothing less and nothing more than infinite love, just love forever, before, during and after the time and space illusion. So, time and space are just illusory dimensions that are simulated from this universal consciousness that knows it all and dreams it all without limits because there is nothing else above it or bigger or more powerful that can limit the infinity, because the infinity itself has infinite power. All my fears, anxiety and sadness vanish completely, just like turning a powerful light in the middle of a dark room, or opening the window of that room to a bright midsummer sunshine. Like the room is a correspondence of my own opaque ego that causes the shadow until it gets open to this infinite light. At this point I used to think how ridiculous it was to fear 5-MeO DMT every time. Then when coming down from the peak, I usually see what some people call the kingdom of heaven, that is a huge human-shaped land where billions of humans, animals and plants live and where the happiness is constant and unlimited. This heaven is a huge structure that is built to constantly reflect back and forth the light from the infinite love, so this dimension or kingdom is an infinite tribute to love that everybody can enjoy forever and freely without limits. As far as I can remember from the trip, I often but not always meet people living in this dimension and they have a full understanding of the absolute sacredness and authority of this infinite bright sun that is love. The people living in this dimension are very creative and they always find new ways to build new buildings, parks, art, gardens, and they enjoy continuously building, improving and enlarging this kingdom to fill it with new people, animals and all kinds of beings coming from Earth and the whole universe. So the universe is a platform for life creation where, as soon as living beings are ready, they are pulled into this upper dimension if they want. This kingdom or dimension is where people seeking to give and receive love enter after they die. People there are very aware of who I am and what I want to learn, and they are also aware that I pay regular visits to their dimension. They also know that I only stay in their dimension a short time, so they all together as a chorus, try to explain to me as much as possible to help me improve and help others awaken to their infinite destiny that is way above and beyond even the most optimistic earthly expectations. So I hear thousands of people talking to me reminding me that love is the only reality and only source of everything, but each one of them is actually saying something slightly different from others, but when translated into limited human language it ends up being phrases like, love others, forgive others, help them prepare for life after death, which is why they are on Earth, just like a baby inside the womb is getting prepared for life on Earth. We on Earth are being prepared for a better life with more freedom after this life. The feeling is that the people on this dimension live in a constant infinite party where there is no end to happiness, joy, pleasure and fun, which is more real, intense and tangible than anything on Earth. I feel then like I am literally falling back into a dreamy state where I find myself in my house or wherever I vaped 5 Mayu. But a huge number of ideas and deep understanding is still coming to me, always related to love, compassion, wisdom, deep understanding of life and society. Usually, my body is still slightly shaking and the body temperature is a bit higher than usual. At this point I can walk and talk, so I usually record some audio to my family and friends and send them some messages I got for them, from the other side. 5 Mayu is the spiritually deepest and mentally clearest psychedelic I ever tried, because it does not cause the psychedelic noise that is common with ayahuasca, mushrooms, LSD or other substances. The limitation with 5 Mayu is its extremely short duration, usually 10 minutes, that feel like a few hours because of all the extremely fast and efficient learning that is possible on the other side, but still, because the ego is completely or almost completely shut down, no memory of the experience can be fully created. So 5 Mayu DMT is required to be taken dozens of times to be able to start remembering something, accumulating a solid memory structure of the experience. I often experience some after effects, especially while sleeping, smoking 5 Mayu during a dream and having the exact same trip experience all over again, but this time remembering it with more detail, and then accessing this white bright light which is broadcasting so much happiness that it would wake me up in the middle of the night, being amazed because of this infinite explosion of solid and true everlasting happiness that is coming out of this light. Some people believe or say that God does not exist, but love does exist, and that was God, just love, but in its infinite form, which is no form at all, just infinity above the time-space continuum. When taking 5 Mayu DMT, it becomes easy to understand why people lose their depression and fear of death after taking it. Because they meet infinity, which is love, and love is the opposite of fear and sadness, so there cannot be shadow where there is light. And where there is infinite light, shadows are never possible. With 5 Mayu DMT I was also able to learn many unknown details about physics, including quantum physics, like for example that all lights from the sun, stars, computer monitors, light bulbs, cell phone screens, are actually the same light coming from infinity. So the sun, for example, does not create light, just like an open window does not create light but allows the light to pass through. What we call light sources are just interdimensional portals that allow some part of the infinity to pass through, and this infinity contains all the frequencies, including infrared radiation, visible light, ultraviolet and other frequencies. A computer screen can show a sunset with some cars passing by, and the illusion of light coming from the sun and from the light bulbs in the cars actually have the same light source within the monitor or TV. Because we live in an illusion, we are living within a tridimensional simulation and the infinity is its source, including the light we see. No matter how we believe that we are creating that light from different independent sources, the source is only one and it is infinite. Watching a flame is actually seeing partially inside infinity, just like watching an infinite landscape from a small keyhole. There are many more things that we can discover thanks to this powerful substance that is created in our own bodies in small amounts. 5 Mayu can help curious people make amazing discoveries, and it did help me with that and to improve my life. Those who try psychedelics, especially 5 Mayu DMT, will reach the next life far more prepared.